The knock came at exactly 10 a.m. in the morning, sharp and certain, the kind of knock that doesn't ask for permission but announces destiny. Arman Qureshi wiped his hands on a faded kitchen towel, his 5-year-old daughter Sana humming behind him as sunlight poured through the cracked curtains of their small Karachi apartment. He wasn't expecting anyone. Bills were due, the milk was almost finished, and the only promise he had made lately was to his daughter, that he would always be there. When he opened the door, his breath caught in his throat. Standing there in a tailored navy suit, sunglasses reflecting the morning light, was a woman he had not seen in 20 years. She lowered her glasses slowly, revealing eyes he would have recognized in any lifetime. Her voice trembled, but her posture did not. She said he had promised her something 2 decades ago. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whisper Tales 3 to keep stories like this alive. Her name was Zoya Arman, and she was no longer the timid scholarship student he once knew. She was now the CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech firms in the country, a woman whose face had graced business magazines and conference stages. But beneath the success, beneath the power, there was something fragile in her gaze. Arman stood there frozen, the weight of memory pressing against his chest. 20 years ago, they were students at a modest public college. Arman was the boy who fixed broken fans in classrooms and tutored classmates after hours to support his widowed mother. Zoya was brilliant, driven, but burdened by a family that believed her dreams were too big for a girl. They studied together under a banyan tree in the courtyard, sharing tea in chipped cups, whispering ambitions to each other that felt too daring to speak aloud anywhere else. Back then, Zoya had wanted to start a company that would give rural girls access to education through technology. It sounded impossible, almost laughable, especially to the world around them, but Arman had believed in her when no one else did. On the night before graduation, when Zoya confessed she had been offered a scholarship abroad but feared leaving her family behind, Arman had taken her trembling hands and told her she must go. He promised her that if she ever doubted herself, if she ever felt alone in a boardroom full of men who questioned her worth, she could knock on his door, and he would remind her who she was. He promised that no matter where life took them, he would always stand by her dream. Life, however, had rewritten their script. Arman's mother fell ill the same year Zoya left. He gave up his own plans for further studies to care for her. Then came marriage, hope, and heartbreak when his wife passed away during childbirth, leaving him alone with baby Sana. Every morning since then had been a quiet battle, packing school lunches, working long hours at a local repair shop, staying up late to stitch costumes for Sana's school events because he couldn't afford to buy them. His world had shrunk to the size of his daughter's smile. And though he carried his struggles with dignity, there were nights he sat by the window wondering what had become of the promises of youth. Zoya stepped into his modest living room now, her heels clicking against worn tiles. The contrast between them was almost cruel, her success radiating confidence, his exhaustion hidden behind a polite smile. Yet she looked around not with judgment, but with reverence. She saw the neatly arranged school books, the framed photo of Arman holding a newborn Sana, the sewing kit on the table. She saw a man who had kept every promise life had thrown at him, even when it broke him in the process. She told him about the years abroad, about boardrooms that dismissed her ideas, investors who laughed at her accent, nights she cried in silence in a tiny apartment in London. She told him how she had nearly quit more times than she could count, but each time she remembered the boy under the banyan tree who had said her dream mattered. She had built her company from scratch, focusing on educational software for underprivileged communities. Today her programs were used in thousands of schools. Yet, despite all the achievements, she had felt something unfinished. She had realized that success meant nothing if she forgot the person who first believed in her. Arman listened quietly, pride and disbelief swirling inside him. He had watched her rise from afar through news snippets and social media posts, always smiling at her victories but never imagining she would return. When she finally looked at him with that same fierce determination from their college days, she reminded him of his promise. She said he had vowed to stand beside her dream, and now she had come to fulfill the other half of that promise. What Arman didn't know was that Zoya's company had been planning to launch a new initiative in Pakistan, focusing on community learning centers. She wanted someone trustworthy, someone who understood struggle, someone who believed in education not as a business, but as salvation. She wanted him to lead it. The offer felt unreal, almost cruel in its generosity. He had spent years convincing himself that his dreams were luxuries he could no longer afford. Now, suddenly, a door he thought had closed forever stood wide open in the bright daylight. Fear gripped him before hope did. He worried about failing, about stepping into a world so different from the small repair shop he knew. He worried about balancing it with fatherhood. But then he looked at Sana, peeking curiously from behind the curtain, her eyes wide with admiration for the elegant woman in their home. He realized that accepting this opportunity was not about pride or ego. It was about showing his daughter that sacrifices do not erase your worth, that life can return your kindness in unexpected ways. Over the following weeks, Arman stepped into a new chapter. He began training with Zoya's team, learning about project management and digital platforms. He stumbled at first, intimidated by corporate language and polished offices, but Zoya stood beside him, reminding him of his strength. The same way he once steadied her trembling hands, she now steadied his. Their partnership wasn't romantic nostalgia, it was something deeper, a shared belief in lifting others. The first community learning center opened in a small neighborhood not far from where they had studied. On inauguration day, sunlight streamed through newly painted windows, children's laughter echoing against fresh walls. Arman watched as girls from humble backgrounds explored tablets and educational software, their eyes shining with possibility. Zoya stood beside him, her expression soft. In that moment, the promise made 20 years ago had come full circle. Arman realized that, while he had thought his life was defined by loss and limitation, it had actually been defined by quiet courage. And Zoya understood that no title or wealth could replace the power of someone believing in you when you have nothing else. Their story became more than personal redemption. It became proof that promises rooted in kindness can survive decades of silence. As the sun began to set that evening, casting golden light across the courtyard, Arman felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope unburdened by fear. He knelt beside Sana, telling her that dreams sometimes take the long road home, but they always recognize the door where they were first spoken. Zoya watched them, knowing that success is not measured in profits, but in lives transformed. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that second chances are real, please take a moment to like, share, and comment below. Your support helps keep stories of hope alive. And before we close, I have a special request. Comment the word promise if you believe that kindness always finds its way back. Remember to subscribe to Whisper Tales 3 and stay with us for more stories that warm the soul.